Welcome to the Bruce Lee Podcast, a podcast about Bruce Lee's life and philosophy. Hello everyone, welcome to the Bruce Lee Podcast. I'm Shannon Lee, and this is our next episode, which is about taking action.
Hi guys, I'm Sharon Lee, not Shannon Lee, just to confuse you and keep you on your toes. I also work with Shannon at the Bruce Lee Family Company. I'm the Chief Creative Officer. So yeah, as Shannon said, this episode is about the topic of taking action. Bruce Lee had so many writings and quotes about this topic, which is why, we consider it a core philosophy. And just to kind of get the conversation started, Shannon wanted to read one of the quotes for you so that we can just start talking about this topic. Shannon?
Yes, and this quote is one that many of you may know, but is very relevant to our topic today, and that is, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do.
Okay, let's dig right into this.
Here we go.
Your dad was all about action, applied philosophy. So,
yes.
Given that this is a philosophy, and living well podcast, let's start with his kind of interpretation of philosophy, because he had kind of a criticism of old school philosophy, right?
Yes.
He was a philosophy major in college,
yes.
and was raised with philosophy, with Asian philosophy. So let's start there. What did he think about philosophy?
Well, he had many writings and thoughts on philosophy, but essentially what he said is that a lot of people talk about philosophy, and they think, oh, that's a cool quote and all that, but they're not living it. He had one writing that says, philosophy is the disease for which it pretends to be the cure. So we spout all this philosophy that we say we believe in, but are we living it? Are we applying it? And my father, it's funny to say, oh, Bruce Lee was all about taking action, and I don't want people to misconstrue, because yes, he was a martial artist, and yes, he was an action film star, but that's not what I mean and what we mean when we talk about it. He was really good at acting on his thoughts and beliefs, and that is what we mean by taking action.
So that, some people are studying philosophy as kind of a history, consider it as true intuition. And so one of your dad's, awesome quotes is, don't think, feel.
Right.
And that's such a, antithetical idea to now, right? So it's like, this is also, masculine and feminine in our culture. It's like, oh, well, feelings aren't important, feelings aren't valid. But in fact, for your dad, it was almost the other way around, right?
Yeah, feelings are signposts. They tell us something about ourselves, and they're physical. You feel them in your body. And in the Western world in particular, and in the modern world, and you as a cultural analyst could tell us more about this, but we have this sort of disease of the mind at the moment, where we're all in our heads so much, and we're disconnecting from our bodies and from how we feel about things. And for my father, and for all of us, when we feel something, that's when the authenticity of a smile happens, and that smile can be contagious, right? So it's just this thing that can really put meaning into our lives, into our pursuits, and into ourselves.
Yeah, and the message has not been trust your feelings. The message has been trust third-party data, or trust, or your boss, or the hierarchy, the establishment, whatever that takes you out of your own intuition.
Well, it's funny because we have this phrase, right? Trust your gut.
Right. Check
your gut. Do a gut check. What does that mean? It means, how do you feel about it? Right?
And also, how does your body, as an intuitive instrument, feel about it, and what is it telling you?
Right. When I think about that, do I feel nauseous? That's probably not good.
Well, I think that we're used to judging that moment when we have the intuition, where we get a bad feeling about somebody, or something makes us not feel right in the stomach, and then our brain kicks in and goes, you have no basis to feel this way, You know, you don't understand what's happening. This is a good deal. You know, you're going to make money, or whatever the logical thought is that interrupts the intuition and the feeling.
Right.
But this is great. It's just a great counterpoint to have in, you know, our culture that is very obsessed with this other way of being, is that there is a way to mastery and philosophy by being fully in your body and being present in your heart and knowing your heart.
Right, and then letting your heart and your body work in concert with your mind, right? Like your mind can take the cue from that. And then, yes, there is a process of analysis that can happen, but it happens based from, we're always using this word authenticity, right? It starts from an authentic place. How do you know it's authentic? Because it's authentic for you.
And that you can feel it.
You feel it, right? You feel it in your heart. I like that. That excites me, right? So that interests me. Let's go find out more about it.
And it seems like for your dad that he really used this feeling and kind of emotional sensor to guide him
right
forward towards these actions that he was taking.
Yes.
And I know that some people out there know your dad as, you know, movie star and martial artist, but what was so interesting for me to find out is the many other ways that he was experimenting, acting, growing, designing, trying, and kind of manifesting in the world. Mm-hmm. And just list off some of them for, you know, I'm just going to start with, like you said, we had one of the first commercial juicers, like, or we had like a commercial juicer in our house because my dad started juicing way back when nobody knew what the hell that was, and only restaurants had juicers.
Yeah,
there was no consumer juicing products, so I thought that was so funny, just imagining this like giant refrigerator size like juicer in your home.
Yes, and my poor mother having to like grind up all manner of vegetable and thing into it. Yeah, you know, because it was about, he had an interest in his body and in his health and in cultivating it, right, to the best of its ability. And so for him, that was about investigating not just exercise, but nutrition. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, he really started looking into what are some nutritious things that people do out in the world. And so they went out and got a juicer. He did lots of things like that. He combined Asian supplements like royal jelly and ginseng with vitamins and brewer's yeast and all this kinds of stuff. You know, he was constantly looking into all these different things. Even when it came to exercise, he was trying to maximize his body for the way he wanted to use it. So at one point in time, he was introduced to weightlifting by a friend of his who was an amateur weightlifter, bodybuilder, and he had never done that before, and he got super into it. But what started happening was his muscles got really big and bulky, and it slowed him down. So then he had to think about that and create a way to work that type of routine into his regimen, but to maximize it for the functionality that he wanted, which was speed as well as power. And so he even got to the point of calling up friends of his who were welders and saying, I need you to create a piece of workout equipment for me because I can't find anything that does exactly what I want, you know, to be able to do. And so he was creating his own training equipment as well as, you know, all these other things that he was doing.
So it seems like so much of your dad's action wasn't, you know, just the physical action, but this consistent practice of researching and journaling and documenting and being in kind of a posture of inquiry.
For sure. And, you know, one of the things that is really inspiring to me as well is that he had this thing that he wrote that said thoughts can be translated into their physical equivalents. And one of the ways in which he did that was that when he had a thought or he had one of those moments where the light bulb went on, he would literally translate it into a physical object if he found it to be meaningful enough to him. He had a moment where he realized that he wanted to break away from the traditional way he had been practicing martial arts and create something new. And so he called up his friend and he said, I need you to create this thing. It's going to be a miniature headstone, and on it I want the words, "In memory of a once fluid man, crammed and distorted by the classical mess." And this is going to be, and I'm going to have this thing, I'm going to set it on my desk, and it's going to be a reminder to me that I'm going to die to the traditional ways in which I was doing things and be reborn as a fluid individual that's creating something new. I mean, like, it's so crazy to me that he literally made these physical symbols for himself to remind him of the path he was on.
Well, it's so interesting just from as a culture analyst and trend tracker that your dad was so ahead on so many of these trends. One is,